to draft regulations. They always lagging behind the capacities of these new technologies. I will talk about this with Merav and see how we can regulate these technologies. And we also have ethical questions, and we'll discuss this during the meeting. Can we really allow these machines to decide for us? Can an AI judge us, knowing that in some countries they already consider replacing judges by artificial judges? So maybe the AI will be fairer, and who can decide to get a loan, because we know the insurers and the banks already use AI to assess your solvability, and if you can get a loan, we may end up being just a number in an algorithm, and you can see the trend. You see what's happening in China with the social credit based on the citizenship ranking you allow to travel or not. And finally, the question was going to change in our daily lives. And we already had a discussion with the journalists from West France. What's going to happen to our jobs, to our lives? And we can talk about this with Sebastian. Will this AI replace us in our daily life, in our daily choices, in our jobs? Are we doomed to be replaced by algorithms? Will we keep our jobs, or will we have to do something else? So all these considerations lead us to think maybe philosophically. So the general idea is to talk with you, to consider the economic aspects, the philosophical aspects, and also the political aspects behind these technologies. And the question is, can we really control AI, or do you think AI will gradually control us? In order to talk about this, we have three main speakers. We have Sébastien Humbert. Let me introduce you to the audience. Yeah, someone is. I think the audience is clapping very well. So you're actually the editor and a founder of Sixtio and a marketing director too. You were previously the founder of Icaria Tech, specialized in digital marketing, and even previously you were employee at Microsoft as a marketing director. You also launched the Modern Selling Summit, and you are an investor in various startups. And you're also a teacher at the FAP, the communication school. And we also have Hubert Etienne. You're ethics expert, ethician, as you call yourself, and will tell us what the ethician does. And you used to be responsible for the generative AI at Meta, and you recently founded Quintessence AI, a consulting firm specialized in ethics and AI. You're a pioneer in the research on ethics and AI, and you invented what we call computational philosophy, something you developed at Facebook, and you can analyze the social behaviors, and you develop this new approach. It become very useful to improve the performance of AI system to detect fake news. And now at Quintessence AI, you have a team of experts advising governments, investors, and companies in order to develop a good governance. And you also created the Paris Conference on AI and Ethics, and you also have the teacher of, of AI ethics at Sciences Po. And finally, we have Merav Grieger.
Et donc Merav,
And Merav, you are a lawyer, an associate in the Franklin law firm, and you have more than 20 years of experience in the IT and data protection and you are, well, quite familiar with all the disputes related to regulations, and you specialized in face recognition, AI, confidentiality, and you're also a teacher at Sciences Po, and you're in charge of a university diploma on cybersecurity and data protection at Panthéon Assas in Paris.
Et donc pour animer tout ça et pour être timekeeper et puis de temps en temps.
So I'll be the timekeeper and I'll be facilitating this. And my name is François Martin. I'm responsible of the external relations of a startup called 22. And we specialized in video intelligence. And I'll be facilitating this debate. And I'm also a teacher in various schools and universities. And I'll try to facilitate this hot panel. So we will have 45 minutes discussion together, and then we'll have a few minutes to answer your questions. So feel free to ask your questions after our presentations and our debate. I would start with you, Sébastien. And the topic as suggested by the Normandy Peace Forum, based on his experience, because you've worked 20 years at Microsoft. And if we ask you, who's in charge of AI, what do you answer? Well, thank you very much, Francois, for this presentation and everything you said. I think you pretty much summarized everything that needed to be said. But who controls the AI? Controls AI? Well, I need to go back to this concept you mentioned, singularity, because it's a very philosophical question, and it's in line to a book I wrote, a book by Rick Zweig called Singularity is Nearer. Whether you're a student, an entrepreneur, and you're a public servant, or whatever, you can read it, and you get an idea of what's going to happen in the future. Because the Turing test in our world will be met by before 2029. So we'll have autonomous AI. They'll be able to adapt their intelligence. And I've heard many things about the Turing test in the past few years. We will be connected to AI who can actually talk on the same level as us, because they'll be much more developed than we. So, for example, could you solve could you find the square root of 289 to the exponential power of 15? Well, it will not be possible, but the AI could do this, and we won't even know that this is AI, because they will adapt to our intelligence. So the question will be, how can AI adapt their reflection to our level? Who controls AI, and who controls the GPUs and the calculation processes? And we have huge mathematical equations, and we need to have the necessary storage rooms for that. And the companies who can control these data storages and these calculation capacities control the AI, like Nvidia, Google, Meta, Microsoft, and so on. So we have a multidimensional question. It's a very broad question, because based on all the evolutions you mentioned.
Des gouvernements, bien sûr.
Is at the crossroad of technological companies, the responsibilities of
Fonds d'investissement, des banques, des acteurs.
Governments, and analysis model like a deep mind, everything. They invest. We have the investment funds, we have banks, actors. They invest money in it, and Who controls the AI? Well, I would say that's like the cluster of all the stakeholders. Because what's truly impressing between the 13th of November 2022 and now, this we see that this technology is disrupting all the jobs, everything we do on a daily basis. And if we don't have all this context, and I think Merav and Hubert will tell us more about this, we'll try to work simultaneously all around the world in order to get the best of AI.
À l'aune du PIB ou PNB,
And based on the economic performances of each country and based on the GDP, we can use the calculations and in order to tackle the many challenges. Uber, the uh, general AI, it's your favorite topic. Tomorrow we'll have a singularity and general intelligence. And we will no longer be able to make a difference between what's human and what's AI. It's a revolution. Is it for the best or for the worst? Well, it's complicated. It's difficult. And I think we have many factors to consider. The first one is, do we really want this? People don't often ask it, but we often ask ourselves if it's possible. But if it's possible, should we? You mentioned Ray Kurzweil. I'm not a big fan of that man, but at least he's honest. He has his ideas, and we're sure that it's going to happen, and it's dangerous because when we have various define what is a strong AI, we have a singularity, and we have a lot of things to consider, but we have a general principle. What's going to happen when we have AI, which is even as intelligent as we are, and even more intelligent? So the AI will be able to do pretty much everything we do, but faster and more easily. And I cannot answer this question, and I cannot compute that fast. But it's a complete disruption compared to what we can actually do. And we need to consider this as a way to, when you look at a gorilla or a giraffe, they can do things that we cannot. They have reflexes, they have other things, and we can collaborate with them. But now, we can have an enhanced level of cognitive complexity. And like post-humanists and all the people interested in AI, and the first question is, how can we make sure that this AI will not destroy us? Because if we create something, they may try to exterminate us. And it tells a lot about the psychology of these people. The idea that we're going to create something that is so superior that this thing will just love us. We just not always think that they want to destroy us. Maybe they want to enslave us. And we can already say that we're already enslaved by machines.
on a de nos capacités mémorielles qui ont été réduites parce on sait.
And unfortunately, I cannot answer your question because we know that we don't, our memory span is not, attention span is not as developed as previously, because now we can use the web. So we need to have a global approach, a comprehensive approach to understand what we want to do before we ask ourselves what we can do. Let me go back to what the first question: can we do it? And we have various theories. It's true that we talk about this even more, and Turing wrote two articles in 1407 and 50. It's possible to automate the human thoughts and the human psyche. It's possible, and we will do it. And these are two of the main questions. Is it possible, and should we do it? And probably not the same question. If it's possible, who should do this?
C'est un acteur public. Qu'est-ce que ça implique en termes de déstabilisation géopolitique? Et je vais peut-être.
And maybe I will conclude with this. People talk about the extermination of humanity. We talk about some kind of matrix universe, like in the Matrix movie. And But if we, for example, if that's what OpenAI wants to do, and that's what DeepMind wants to do. We have two most powerful companies in the world, and they say we're here to create a general AI. We're just here to have a God on earth who's going to be much better at us to make the necessary decisions and tell us, no, you shouldn't invest here, we should invest there. Game over. And it destroyed pretty much all the opportunities on the market. It can make political decisions, geopolitical decisions. Maybe they will advise you on your love life. As soon as we have God among us, and we can use this God on pretty much everything. So, for example, if it happens in the United States, do you think the Chinese will be okay with this because they give us such a competitive advantage? They're going to keep on working the business as usual.
And do you think that the Europeans are going to let that happen, or all the states are going to continue working in this new state, new world order? I don't believe this. I think these are challenges we need to meet right away, straight away. Thank you very much, Hubert, for this very enlightening and confusing presentation. As an echo of what has been said, and with a huge vision as a legal expert, do you think is this a pipe dream? Can this be regulated? And yes, and how and why? Dear Francois, I'm very happy that you do not ask me who is in charge of AI, because maybe my human intelligence is not able to think about this. But I'm going to answer this question, even though you didn't ask me that question. Who has control over AI? My opinion is maybe not the right one, but I would like to share it with you, and it would be a transition on the issue of linked to my true skill that is admittedly in this panel. I think the one who controls the AI, what you mentioned is absolutely true. I am not a computer expert. I'm just a lawyer. I ended up in technologies just by chance, but I've been doing it for 20 years now. My impression is this is just the front line, and that in the back office, behind the screen, the one who masters the AI is the one who's got access to the information, who's got an interest in accessing to the information, which brings us to attempts to regulate the information and the data which we have been seeing under the angle of this the famous GDPR, the European regulation on data and on privacy, that many people hated it, and all this attempt of regulation of data that wants to be personal data, but goes well beyond to the personal data privacy of individuals. It also protects the sovereignty over national data that goes beyond personal data. And we can imagine lots of information that could be falsified, a patent that is being recorded, all the business secrets, all the financial information. It's the same question that we ask ourselves with AI. There's accessibility to this information when you feed them into the machine. When you ask, we get information about private life, on our professional projects, and confidential information, financial information, strategic information, and political information. All these regulations that already exist today, because we think they'll be able to regulate the AI, regulating the technologies. And every time we manage to define a text that is sufficiently balanced, that allows a regulatory authority not just to verify, control, and sanction, and add flexible legal terms that are sufficiently flexible so that you can adapt them and adjust and can go beyond the law by integrating something that we don't really master very well, but Hubert, that you master very well. It's the ethics. So you already can't work alone on this. In terms of AI, just like with the GDPR, it was the same worry, the same issue about the sovereignty, national sovereignty on data, the cyber war that is happening in the shadows, and the strategic war and political, and also the protection of our privacy, even though that's only one of the issues. We have voted in 2024 the famous AI Act that happened that went in force in August, where we talk about the risk management, regulatory practices regarding all stakeholders on which we impose a certain number of obligations and sanctions. If these are not, they can all the way up to 35 million euros penalty and 77% of the international turnover. So in my opinion, it seems impossible, but the question is, can we regulate this? Just like any technology, they said that told them that it was impossible, so they tried to do it anyway. Of course, you need to regulate, but it's kind of a pipe dream. But it's the framework that it's going to be locked down, and that it will allow us to move forward in a form of education, of self-regulation, a definition of a very changing ethics. Thank you, Merav. To echo what Hubert said, between the possibility to do it and the will to do it, on the evolution of the different jobs and trades, on the AIs that can complement and potentially replace jobs, particularly regarding regulated functions, very framed functions. What are the trades of tomorrow that will the jobs of tomorrow that will either disappear or will be augmented because of AI?
C'est une question qui est très large.
That is a very broad scope. All trades, all jobs will be impacted, will all be augmented. Replace jobs or jobs that will evolve is all the jobs where there are very clear and reproducible rules. In the language, there is rules that are defined. So an AI, a generative AI, they will be able to reproduce this. So if I take a job like in the area, in the industry of figures like finance or bookkeepers, let's take a concrete example. Analyzing, integrating, making, and analyzing book, reconciling books. All this is a job that should be automatized. So we are there a certain number of bookkeepers are going to have to change in their role. They're going to have to evolve it will be more a notion of advice, of financial analysis, of more personalized services. So some of the tasks are going to be instantaneous, just like in the legal. If I need to analyze different legal history or legal proceedings, this is going to be on the push of a button. So other tasks will be important. So we're going to have to live with having these co-pilots, these help by agents to use them in our trades. If I don't integrate them at one moment in my life, in my trade, I'm going to be a traditional bookkeeper, and I'm completely lose step and even obsolete with other bookkeepers who will be completely integrating the AI. So it's really a question of using tools and appropriating these tools. With Microsoft, there is this term of co-pilot. I have a co-pilot. So how in my trade, in my industry, I can use a co-pilot to be more efficient. And then in the company in Septeo, where I work, we work a lot on regulatory data for notaries, for lawyers. And so how can I make my lawyer's office more efficient? How can I interpret and analyze and exploit precedence documents or legal documents or legislations faster so that the lawyer can spend more time designing strategies for his customers rather than compiling information? Not a long time ago, I was at the big Parisian lawyers meeting, and there was the vice director of the French lawyers school who says, AI, we're going to need it. You have to use it. What is important, we need to have quality data. And this needs to be with true anonymized data, so there's no customer data or situation that ends up on the market. And so and I'm going to finish on that. All the trades, all the jobs will be impacted by AI. You need to appropriate them, you need to own them, and then, of course, you have to regulate them from the ethical point of view, from the legal. How can I anonymize this in an intelligent and smart way when it's necessary, so that we respect everyone's privacy? But it's a very interesting question. And Hubert, particularly on this angle, you with this vision of ethics? Are there any industries where they need to be replaced by generative AI that could perfectly well do this job without human interventions? Or so where we basically decide is where's the cutoff point? Some jobs can be replaced, others not, because human intelligence needs to be at the core of the decision of the action for these specific type of jobs. This also is complicated. But I see there are obviously no easy questions. Thank you, Francois. Again, it all depends. Personally, there's many jobs which I think should disappear, particularly when it happens to interact with the administration. I would love that all the red tape would disappear and that we could finally breathe. No more tax returns to file. Everything could be automatized or delegated to AIs. I would love to see that. Be careful. I'm not saying we should put all the public servants out of their jobs, but there's some tasks that are extremely dull and time-consuming. Nobody likes doing them. There are some time-consuming and dull jobs where people are forced to do. There's shit jobs, there's bullshit jobs. We need to really sort among the jobs. I think what we need to focus on what has a meaning, what carries a meaning. There's some areas where we need to have a human presence or human supervisions, as soon as we have self-deciding weapons or medical decisions or legal decisions. I think the main issue is, of course, is common sense. Are these valorizing activities? Are these jobs where people enjoy themselves? If it's not the case, maybe we should give this to the robots. You know, today, one of the big issues is, are we going towards a complete disappearance of jobs? I'm going to throw 2 stones in the puddle. Possible. People, no, it's not possible, because it's absolutely possible. We could imagine a work where all the robots would do all the jobs. That could be a possibility. And some people actually dreaming of this, of Sam Altman of OpenAI. That is part of his vision. We need to get out of the of work. That's actually an etymology. Work is actually torture from the etymology. So we need to get people out of work and have a universal revenue. Many philosophers have thought about that. A society where nobody works, everybody only does things he likes. It's not moral or immoral. It's basically a vision of the world. Other people say, no AI, and in between you have people say we have some AI, but we need to define where the cutoff points. I'm more from that point of view. Again, if the jobs we destroy are jobs nobody wants to see anymore, that can be automatized and that do not provide any meaning for people, and if next to that we produce new jobs that where you can be more enriching by doing them, or that have a social value. I'm going to give an example for that. The trades which I see appearing, there's many of them. Its functions is data validation, content validation. Is it good? Can you maybe explain what is a data validation, data creation, content creation? Is it good to create new jobs in which you ask people that are paid 50 cents per hour in India or in South to check, to validate more content, say, oh, this is violent, this is porn, this is hate speech, or simply annotate database and say, on this image you see a chair, here you see pigeons, you see birds, you see panthers, and that is all the validation work of AI. This is important. This is being done by little hands, by slaves. Will all the jobs look like this? I hope not. But you need to have this analysis. We destroy jobs and we create others. Very good. We need to think about proportionality. But what do we replace it with in terms of quality of jobs? Merav, earlier you said that it was impossible to regulate, so have to do it. So for you, what would be the most smart way to regulate it, most pragmatic way of regulating? Do companies need to self-regulate, or the state where the company is working needs to regulate it, or via algorithm, do we need to do it with the AI Act or at continental level like EU is doing it, or should it be at the international level or supranational level where UN should do a worldwide regulation of AI? What would be the proper level or scope of regulation? UN, I don't think that could be the most competent institution. You need to be skilled for that. And of course, at the international level, first and foremost. France is kind of very at the forefront of the ethical regulation as much as possible. We don't do enough of it, but there is this issue in Europe as following, and very often we are used as a model, we serve as a model for the international. So we are being duplicated and inspiring around it. With the AI Act in Europe, we have created already a will to copy this European level and to Leiden. It was voted in parallel in last May, because once it's been voted, means there's been lots of preparatory work to define a legal text where everyone agrees. We have an international treaty that's called the Framework Convention on AI, Democracy, Human Rights, and this rule of law. And this is signatory by the member states of the EU and 11 third-party states, so that's already an international agreement. Among them you have the US, Canada, Argentina, Israel, Peru, Uruguay, and lots of other countries which I've forgotten. But we are here on international level approach. But of course it's not sufficient. It's necessary, but it's not sufficient. We need to do more of it. It needs to be generalized. The first criteria in terms of solution is the international criteria. The second one, as you said, it's the efficacy. Very often in regulation we're not efficient. We do lots of fantastic legal documents, and then those on which we impose the say, but this can't be applied to, or it does not reach its objective. So here again we need to take legal mechanisms that can be applicable in an efficient way. Of course, I haven't got the solution to that, but this needs to be part of the issue. And when we define these objectives and we integrate these issues, we need to get closer to a viable and applicable solution, because if documents are not applicable, then we haven't reached our goals. You talk about self-regulation and commitment, unilateral, multilateral, of the different stakeholders. Yes, we can't do it alone. We've got that with internet. You can't play it alone. At all levels of intervention, to international, maybe even spatial with Elon Musk, at all levels, we need to define the ethic and the strategies in the use of AI, all the way to the daily work and ourselves at the daily level. What do we do? How do we work with these tools that cannot be done without? I think there is a part of fantasy. I don't think these tools are going to become our overlords. They're going to do better, cheaper, far better tasks that are boring. Of course, that means some low-level jobs are going to be suffering, but if we can automatize them, we're happy with them. We need to deal with the people whose jobs have been destroyed by the robots, and we need to find them in the solutions, compensations, coaching. We also need to create new jobs, because if AI prospers, this should not slow down human intelligence. That also has the limit. The sky's the limit for human intelligence. I don't think that we discover every time new capacities. So everyone needs to define. We were exchanging early on when we were preparing this round table. We were saying it's somewhat like a knife, a bread knife, a Swiss knife. A bread knife is useful in your daily life. It's a necessary tool. But it can also be a weapon. It can be used for something else. We have, every morning when we cut our bread, we have a weapon in our hands. Do we kill someone with it? No, if auto-regulated, we don't stab our partner with it. They are not going to kill our humanity, the robots. I don't think so. But I think there is a fantasy around that. It's not the law that is going to, and regulation is going to be a solution, but it's necessary. And for us, it can't be a catastrophe. It could be turnover. But for the kids, it would be less. But we need to relativize. I mean, there was also AI before, and we were doing AI without even using. We hadn't called it AI, but it was machine learning and all these robots around us. But these robots, they cannot dominate us, according to myself, to my opinion. And I think that there's lots of maybe fantasies and fears, or fear and uncertainty and doubt. And to quote an article which I read, which I agreed with, maybe there's also a human becoming megalomaniac to become this creator of a recreating life, basically, that we be if there's creator, it's not us. We are not we create lots of tools, material stuff, fantastic ones. AI is one of them, but we need to use it properly. And also, that's also our responsibility. Sébastien, to echo what you said earlier on who's controlling AI, to stay on the concrete step, Merav has given us elements on how can we concretely regulate AI. You, if tomorrow you had to take control of AI, which factors should we include in order to take control and control AI effectively? I'm going to start answering by what Hubert said and Merav. Hubert, he was speaking about how the giants of tech want to create some kind of god, god figure who is going to come down and then take the wise decisions for everything. And then Merav is underlining the capacity of having maybe an AI that is not going to destroy us at the end. It's not going to be the end of humanity in itself, per se. I'm thinking about Prometheus. Prometheus, he went to get the fire from the gods, and he was punished for that. He suffered a lot for it. And here we went to grab the fire from the gods, and I think that a lot of what the AI can do for human people, fundamentally that it is going to have a great impact on humans. And on the issue on these multidimensional approaches, political, economical, geopolitical, ethical, etc., the question is when and at what level. I haven't got the answer to that. It's very complicated. When will we implement guardrails that are very complicated to implement compared to these AIs that will be autonomous at one level in order to ensure that they are useful and not dangerous. And these guardrails where they are difficult to implement, like the denuclearization treaties for the regulation of decarbonization, is you need to get different visions in line. And we as human people, we need to, how can we reconcile different visions? If you take the vision of innovation in the United States that is very oriented on a maximum innovation for maximum profitability with a minimum regulation, compared to the vision of China, where they're going to use the AI for a maximum social surveillance. I'm not sure we want that. And that have different economical logics. How can we find the proper compromise to control and take control of this AI? I'm not sure what amount, but I think that with regulation at national level by countries, that would be extremely different. That at one point we are going to need a regulatory instance. Might not be the UN or the WTO. Could there be maybe some kind of world institution to coordinate the initiative, have a flexible regulations with multilateral or bilateral agreements between countries? I believe in that, because without that, then of course the human beings love to defer from one country to another, and it's going to become so. We have to control AI by defining guardrails at international level. But I haven't got the answer to that. Hubert, a notion on which you're working, and would be interesting to share with you, when we often say that the AI are biased. So they have a vision that is skewed of the world, very oriented vision of the world, or at least they interpret in a certain way the questions that we ask them in order to give us an answer that is influenced by these biases that they have, these invisible biases, and what impact this has on in the AI decisions, and how do we use them. Yes, I'm going to, just before I speak about the bias, I want to go back to the megalomaniacs. I agree, of course, with what you say. I do not agree with the positions I have mentioned, but they exist. And I really call upon everyone to have a serious look at them. I am not promoting them, because they are supported by, when you talk about general AI, this is a vision. It's but the possibility that we're going to create is that is supported by people of Yann LeCun, from Meta, Jan Resveld, or Jeff Hinton, who was the boss for AI at Google and who's just quit his job a couple of months ago. It's supported by the boss of DeepMind and by the boss of OpenAI. So all the big dogs of AI are actually supporting this vision of creating a God figure. So it's not a trivial idea. I hope we're going to avoid it, but nevertheless, it's possible. But we can't ignore it. We can't put it under the carpet. It could be a strategy, could be a commercial argument, but at least for the scientists, they're certainly more honest on this issue, but maybe I'm wrong. To get back on the biases, what do we call a bias? We need to look at two things. First of all, we have definition. What is a bias? That is something we know in sociology, we know it in statistics. If I want to observe this table in front of me, we come to agree that it's a yellow it's a yellow table. If I'm going to take on blue glasses, it's going to be green, so I'll see it green. In my methods of observation, I know that I have a bias. I'm going to correct this bias, knowing that my glasses, my ways of observing, are going to be the proper shape, but not necessarily the right color. This is what we call a bias of observation, and I take that into account in my scientific results. We have pretty much the same in AI. We call it algorithmic bias, and there's different types of bias. If I train my AI with data to recognize shapes, and in my training database, I have 70% of chairs and 30% of tables. It will be the bias will be better to recognize chairs than recognize tables. It will be adapted to chairs with different legs, with different forms, different shapes. It's also going to depend on the diversity of the elements. That it's going to be more difficult for the AI to recognize something that is completely innovating, a denovating table, or a completely weird-shaped table. So that is what we call an observatory bias, a statistic bias, a training bias, algorithmic bias. But there is a confusion today, more or less seen between these biases and cognitive biases. Cognitive bias is limitations that we're going to have in our judgment processes when we take decisions, more or less rational decisions. We know that when we are very tired, we have a tendency of not wanting to take a decision, the statu quo bias. And this has an important implications in the legal area. Typically, if you are in front of a tribunal, or it's better to be judged at 8 o'clock in the morning. If you want to be bailed out at 8 o'clock in the morning, at 11:30, it's established at 11:30. The judges are tired, they're hungry, they are not interested in your case, and don't want to take any danger, so they are not going to take any brave decisions. Again, if you want to be in jail for numerous years, it's better to be judged at the end of the day, for instance. So here again, if I get back to transhumanism, you have people who try to maintain a confusion between this, saying, we agree that we need to remove the bias of the algorithm, so they need to be far more performing, they need to be recognizing tables and chairs. Here I'm giving you an example that is not really an issue from the moral point of view, when it's about recognizing white-skinned people and dark-skinned people, women and men, or distributing job offers. We want to avoid discriminations that are not just illegal and immoral, but that are transmitted via training biases. There's cases we want to avoid this. But what I was trying to say in this is that today there are people trying to maintain a confusion between cognitive bias, so limited rationality of humans, and algorithmic biases on which we try to work in order to avoid illegal discrimination. We want to remove the bias from the algorithm because it's racist, it's sexist, but you also need to remove the biases from humans because it's the humans who communicate their biases in the algorithm. So we try to tend towards a more rational agents with a very wide definition of biases. In some transhumanist documents, they say, for instance, political opinions is a bias because it's not rational. Sexual preferences is a bias. Religions are a bias. So we need to delimitate all that. In the end, we have this very rational agent. I don't think we're going to end with this, but we are trending towards that. But there's people who are pushing this agenda. We need to keep this in head and say, we need to remove the bias everywhere, and we completely talk about bias, but we don't know what we're talking about. So we are supporting an extremely volatile argument. We have the lucky of having a young audience. I really invite you to retain your common sense. It seems incredible, but the common sense is something we don't see much of it, even at the high-level research on these issues. It's very simple to say, oh, I read this report. I'm going to take the conclusion of this of the report and I'm going to disseminate it to everyone. But very often it doesn't really have a meaning of what we're doing. If I go a little bit more in detail, all the AI is founded on bias. The mechanism under which you take decision. It's not me saying it's Yann Lequin a couple of some weeks ago. So I'm not very brave to I'm quoting the expert. All this is based on biases. Somewhere you need to de-bias the algorithm. This is a sentence that does not mean anything. And sometimes you just need to ask yourself, what are we talking about? Let's redefine the topics. What are we trying to avoid? And how can we do this by accepting that we haven't got all the answers? That is hard to say. Can you explain to me something? And then you realize that people around you do not know how to explain things.
Thank you very much, Hubert. You're right on time, and we can move on to the Q&A session with the audience.
Il y a plein de bras qui se lèvent, donc c'est...
A lot of hands in the audience. I'll give the floor to the first one who gets a mic. I don't have the microphone, so I'm not the one to decide. Try to grab a mic. Someone has a microphone, so please stand up, get up, and when you have the microphone, could you, if you have a question from someone, a specific panelist, please tell us who is it for. Would it be possible that AI starts thinking by itself to feel emotions, maybe anger, hatred, or feeling of superiority towards human beings?
Non.
No.
C'est un débat parmi les experts.
It's debate among the experts. We have various theories. What we call the emergence theory. It depends if we have the old AI, we call symbolic AI, and compared to collectivist AIs, we have debates on this. So we still haven't solved the question. I'm not sure we can get a definitive answer, but some people consider that we are at risk, existential risks. It may happen, and it's going to happen. And even though I completely disagree with them, and I think they're truly honest, and I think we should consider their point of view.
Qui a le micro?
Another question with the microphone. Please stand up. And please speak in the microphone. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Well, first of all, thank you for your conference, because personally I'm very interested in AI, and I think that we are young people and it's close to us. So my question was, do you think that the AI is a good tool or more like detrimental to us? I'm thinking about ChatGPT when we have to do our homeworks, because some people do it, and sometimes I even do it. So it be kind of nuanced, because it's difficult to understand how you use it. Or I would start a question after the question. Among you, who has already used ChatGPT to do your homeworks? All right. That's one way of answering the question. We started with a notebook and a pen. In AI, we have intelligence, augmented intelligence. In one, I can say it's kind of a pen, some type of notebook, but you have a screen. you need to reinforce your intelligence and your curiosity. We need to learn how to learn, and we need to have the taste of learning. And what I want to say, some people may disagree, but I'm a teacher and I'm teaching MBA, and I consider ChatGPT to be mandatory. And why? Because we think that students who can use ChatGPT after a training to develop their critical thinking, and I think it's absolutely essential. And if I can have an approach, a methodology to be better than doing it all by myself while writing my thesis or dissertation, it could be a great thing because everyone uses it. So how can I reinforce my intelligence, my traditional human intelligence, by talking, reading, debating, while at the same time using Gemini, ChatGPT, and all the solutions with a specific methodology? To answer concretely to your question, I'm also a teacher in schools and universities, and always an exercise at the Sorbonne is that we need them to have a summary of a complex topic, and they must be able to summarize it in 2 pages. So something that's quite complex. And since 2024, I tell them it would dumb not to use ChatGPT, so they kind of shocked, and I kind of encourage them to use ChatGPT. How did I do this? Well, I'm going to assess your homeworks. I'll have a look at your summary, but what will be more important is that I want you to print the whole prompts and the whole dialogue you had with ChatGPT so you can actually challenge its answers, so you can have more critical thinking based on this dialogue, and the grade will be more based on the way the critical thinking behind the summary rather than the final results. So it can be very truly beneficial if you can use it wisely, intelligently, and not only to have a final product. And Albert Einstein said, if I have 1 hour to solve a problem, I would take 55 minutes to ask myself the right questions and 5 minutes to solve the problem. If you ask stupid questions, you'll get stupid answers. If you have an intelligent discussion with this tool, you can get clever answers. Merav, that was pretty perfect, but be careful when you use it because you talk about biases, and they exist. So you have to challenge AI. Feel free, just remember, so you won't have several times the same results. Never use ChatGPT because at the end of the day, we pretty much have the same results and the same homeworks. And the teacher tends to notice this. Let's talk about human control. You need to control as a human the results given by AI, and take some time, 55 minutes to 1 hour, to define the good queries, the good questions. And there's always biases and not always use the results. And what creative people do, they need to improve the results of ChatGPT. So you need to challenge it, you need to check it, you need to assess it, and then you need to appropriate it, you need to make it yours. So the final result is in line with what you think.
Monsieur, vous pourrez donner là-bas ensuite?
Alors, là-bas, et ensuite il y aura le premier rang aussi.
Oh, another question, please, sir. I don't know if it's really a relevant question because I'm not familiar with this. Mirav, you talked about the relevance of data. If I understood correctly, AI feeds data and generates new data. And the question I will ask, when you have more and more data available online and produced by AI, so AI will feed on data produced by AI. So do you think it will lead to a lack of efficiency or um, non-reliable data? Actually, it's very relevant, and I think it's quite sophisticated, and it shows that you know more than what you said. And obviously, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to answer this. So we are under influence. If we use AI, in very simple way, basic way, because AI feeds on what it has received, and only that, well, they may erase some elements. And you see some very simple questions. They may not be too good. And if you say to the AI that they forgot something, well, it may have the missing element. It can be influenced. And this is why worries me. The fake news, data manipulation. So we have super hackers and they feed AI. They will erase some elements and include other elements. So it's always difficult to fight these hackers. We are very cautious when we use Google. So we need to keep the same intelligence and vigilance when you use ChatGPT.
Et je vais juste apporter un point peut-être avec une notion de quantité, puisqu'on parle de la quantité de données produites.
I just wanted to add something because we talk about the quantity of data. So unfortunately, we don't have any reference studies. We consider by 2025, if we consider all the data, structured data and non-structured data generated by companies and individuals, we consider that we have produced 175 zeta octets of data is 10 to the power of 21 bytes. So it's quite difficult to understand. And the best performing companies are companies who can have the reference framework for the data and the quality of their data. They can interpret and analyze the data. And this is why we need to have the necessary team members, because once again, the fuel of AI is data.
Bonjour, alors moi,
Good afternoon.
moi je préfère la poésie et ça me fait beaucoup réfléchir tout ça en fait.
Well, I'm not very familiar with AI. I prefer poetry. And I was wondering that when you talk about AI, the elite and all the software developers and programmers, don't you get the feeling that this AGI, artificial general intelligence, will become the end of humanity and the end of some kind of human consciousness, and we will be controlled by AI? How can we control the AGI if it's everywhere and it's omniscient?
Déjà, un titre introductif, avec un personnage comme celui-ci, on s'inquiète pas trop.
Okay, so just first and foremost, we're such a character. We shouldn't shouldn't worry to be too blunt as a humanity. So please answer the question. I'm not sure I really understood the question. So what drives us to doing this? You mentioned megalomaniac. I think it's part of the solution. Let's go back to the age of enlightenment. And when we started to think that man and woman are born equal, free and equal, a different way to envision humanity. And from that point, you are responsible for yourself. If you are poor and you remain poor, it's because of you. If you don't become a multimillionaire, that's your fault. So there's a responsibility on the shoulder of everyone. I know it's not true. We have many more factors, but at that point, we have a huge responsibility, because now we have people on the internet say, well, 14 years old and now millionaire because of cryptocurrencies. They create a podcast, they create a YouTube channel, and you have no good excuses not to become a millionaire. So once again, must be nuanced, but in the last 2 centuries, we have put a lot of pressure on everyone's shoulder. And the idea is, shouldn't we give all this pressure to the AI so we can get rid of it and freed from this pressure? And I talk about megalomaniacs, where a lot of people who want to become God and they want to create an artificial intelligence which would be superior to human intelligence. But I think being a man is being a megalomaniac. So what will happen to us? So maybe we should be humble. We're probably not the most intelligent being in the universe, but we have people who want to create something bigger than themselves, and this is a way to become a god.
Je sais que tu n'es pas forcément un fan de Ray Kurzweil.
I know you're not really a fan of Ray Kurzweil, but I think there's a very interesting theory in his book, and it has to do with evolution, what we are as human beings. We cannot. Sorry, maybe we see what's going to happen to human beings in the next 15 years. When we go back to 2 million years in the past, we had the brain pretty much like a CPU with all the reflexes, the movements, and with the evolution, the adjustments, the necessary adjustments to the life on this planet, we managed to adapt. We have the cortex and the neocortex, and we have long clusters of neural links, so we can do things that are properly human. We can model and understand abstract concepts, mathematical concepts. And in this thesis, AI will probably follow the organic and physiological evolution of humans. We see amazing breakthroughs with nanotechnologies, and I think that in the next 10 to 15 years, it's probable that the human brain may, is still a possibility, may interconnect, and we may reach a superior stage of what it means to be human. And maybe we don't really envision what it means, because we'll probably all be augmented because of the way we can model our consciousness. It's one of the theories in the book.
Sorry, I don't want to just hog the microphone, but this comes back to the question that was asked in reaction to what you said. There's a possibility, if we manage to interconnect our brains, try to think of that. And there's people working on that. Elon Musk, he's created a company called Neuralink that is very secret and works on that. Connect our brains to computers, or interconnect our brains, so we work telepathically. The philosophical question behind that is, in questions of war and peace, if Sébastien and I were connected, we can send each other a message. We also can communicate our affect. So if I hit you, I will also feel your pain. We have a communion of everything. There will be no more issues of communication. We feel what the other feels. We understand what the other understands. Is this possible? At what level? And the second question, if we are all connected at this level, maybe that was a question of the initial, the sense of do we still have any individuality or not, or do we melt into all as one? Is it allows to be like a colony of ants interconnected for the good of all? I don't want to fight you, because my happiness comes from you, and I share your happiness and your pain. So this is almost a nuclear dissuasion for all humanity. That's one of the pipe dreams of humanity. I don't know what this guy's been smoking. Before your comment, can we maybe still have 15 minutes of silence? Because please, 15 minutes before, so we can hear the questions in the end. Hello, everyone. I'm very interested in AI, and I wondered if our groups, can you prevent AI to control our data? Can we prevent them from controlling our data? Thank you for this question. Access to data, you need to know that when you use a generative AI like ChatGPT in open source, you basically give up the information you provide the machine. So already you're losing the control over this information that will be shared with the entire collectivity. So you've already done a first action of releasing information, because they're going to control your information. They're going to feed with that information in order to generate a new request, an answer. So through the open source, you're basically feeding the beast. You're already feeding beast, and you're already given up the control over your data. Sorrow. There is a man who spent about 1.5 hours raising his hands. Change your arm. Change your arm, because apparently nobody wants to give you. We still have some time for questions. Go ahead. I'm going to ask you straight. I have a problem on my right arm. I have a problem with my right arm. But beyond that, that's why I couldn't raise another arm. So can you hear me? Okay. I just wanted to add a proposition to your formulation. You please wait, just like in the Olympic Games. Just get up if you can. Yeah, okay. So I'm talking to the lawyer. But all four of you are concerned by this. I believe that we are kind of, for a couple of days, we've kind of thrown out of track. As you understand it, we are ahead in terms of regulation in Europe. You even go to the case of France, that is at the vanguard in terms of regulation. I would like to add, if you could add in all transparency in the terms that you've used, when I say we are kind of lost our head, it's because we lost one of our best experts in the digital files. It's the European Commissar Thierry Breton. He's given up his job. When we know that this man, after having been the CEO of the French Telecom, so he's got his passion is quantum mechanics. It is kind of serious that he's been stepped off the stage. What do you think about this? I don't think it's a legal question, sorry. I'm not going to give you an opinion on someone. I can give you the opinion on a system, on a functioning, on usage, on a person, and it might be, he's not a god, he's not I think that we can find among all these students future experts. I don't know about this debate. I can't say anything, and when I can't say anything, I do not say anything. Next question, please.
S'il vous plaît. Un peu de silence.
Donc bonjour, moi j'avais une petite question. C'était pour savoir, est-ce que
I just wanted to know, in the future, will robots be able to have feelings like do robots dream of electronic sheep like the famous robot? Can I see a love dispute between two robots? This guy's been watching Blade Runner too long. Will robots be able to have feelings for each other? I don't want it to be predictive here, very complicated. Every time you take a regulation and you take legal documents like these, authorities that sanction, future that is nearby, but it's still future. There will be sanctions. There will also be exemplary sanctions. Yes, we'll see that. The second part, the robot quarrels. I don't know about this.
Je vais la prendre.
Well, I'm going to answer that question. Regarding on questions of emotion, it's complicated. It's debates. Everything is subject to debates. All this links back to different conception of what humans are. You have one that comes that everything is cognitive. We are a machine that deals with electric signals, and so there's no problem of simulating the feeling of what do you mean by feeling? That's not easy to understand. That there's people for whom, yes, we are kind of a machine that deals with that analyzes signals and would react in the environment and what really, but we have something extra, a soul. And so, depending on the theory, there's always thing that robots will not be able to go beyond this. The first question is, can they do it? Could it be the case or not? What would it change for us? Robots can already AI that can detect emotions, and they can detect them, they can simulate them. It's important, and it detects if you are angry or not, and that can adapt to the discussion. Also simulate the emotions on robotic face and you can do emotional manipulation with this. You can do communicate, but there's a whole field about this, social robotics. You know, the last point is the anthropomorphic capacity of men. It's the empathic projection. We have a tendency of recognizing people like us everywhere. It's quite interesting because it allows us not to kill each other, but we have a tendency of believing that our cat, our dog, is slightly more human than we think. And that is something we also find with robots. And we've seen that robots who simulate pain that is insufferable. The MIT has shown that something that is obviously a machine, doesn't even look human, but simulates pain, as if you had hurt us, then people are going to take the battery away because they can't see the robot suffer, even they know that the suffering is not real. So I don't have the answer, but there's other factors that need to be taken into account, is our capacity to recognize and be able to project emotions that they might have. And another example on this topic of emotions and feelings, for the past 2 years now, there's a Japanese company that, in order to meet an issue of not enough care workers for people who are in pain because they lost their loved one. So they've transferred everything of the data from someone in your family who died, all the SMS, all the text messages, all the conversation, all the profiles, voice extracts, pictures, and they recreate artificially your capacity to interact after your death with your mother, with your grandfather, etc. And so you have people, and it really raises philosophical questions. And you have people in Japan who, after their deaths, continue to dialogue with an avatar of their beloved dead people because they can't grieve. And it's extremely incredible because the avatar speaks with the same voice as the dead, has the same emotions, the same jokes. Can you imagine? Can you imagine what that psychologically creates for someone who continues to speak years after with his mother or his dead dog? Hello? I had a question regarding the jobs, because you seem to say that it's a good thing if the regular jobs be replaced by AI, because they're not necessary done by humans. But I just want to say a remark by the fact that I don't think this is a good thing.
Généralement issus de minorités,
because people coming from minorities, they will have, who's going to sweep my floors? You know, all these routine jobs. very often they're unqualified jobs. And if these are easy jobs for minorities who haven't got many job opportunities, so will the AI not be a danger for these underdogs, for these, and shouldn't the state prevent this? That's it.
Il y a plusieurs choses dans cette question qui est...
There's many elements in this question which is quite good and important. There's this notion of equality of chances, of access to jobs, access to digital and to the latest tendencies of AI. And here, the governments, the states, the companies, they have a social responsibility to contribute to train a whole generation of these usages. And fundamentally here, I believe in the combination of the public sphere and the private sphere to achieve this. We do not know what jobs will disappear and which jobs will appear. What is certain is that there's many studies showing that up until 2030, many new jobs, many new trades, that do not even exist today will be created. Some of them will pass fascinating, others will be less. Some trades will not disappear. They're very interesting. And if you're over qualified or not, some people, after having been traders, now are become woodworkers, and some people they start becoming beekeepers after having been engineers. So you need to find a meaning in what you do. And this concept of training is fundamental if you want to adapt and be agile and reactive and not a victim in this world that changes, because you can be a victim of digital Darwinism, meaning that if I do not adapt to these new tendencies, I can disappear. And then cultivate what we like doing, the meaning in what we like to be doing, and there we want to realize ourselves. And when we do, and when we find a thing that gives us a meaning in our life, we do this. But we're not all born under the same star with the same facilities, and that's why we need to help each other so that everyone can access that level of training. So the last two questions, there was one here at the first row and then another one. Hello everyone, I wanted to know, because AI is going to be a very important geopolitical tool, is France and the European Union, will they have sufficiently strong enough to be able to compete with the US or with China? Will they play a role in the geopolitical game? Thank you very much. I can try to answer that question. The answer is no. I'm going to give you some figures that are fairly simple and eloquent. And honestly, and France has true ambitions in that area, and we are right. France has invested, and these are consequent, 10 billion euros on AI over the last 5 years. That is a big figure. I don't know if you look at the economical situation, the debt and all this. This is a true figure, and it's very nice to see that France is one of the few European countries doing this. I can give you China, at the same time, has invested over $300 billion on investment in AI. The US, just the public sector, the state, has invested about $160, $170 billion. So we're not in the same world here. We're not playing on the same field. These are technologies that require so much money to invest, because you need to pay engineers, you need to pay for computers, for the calculation, for the power. So there's a power play here, a ratio. We'll never be able to be at the same level as these countries that are 2 or 3 to fighting. We can only be a respected power by being on technological niche markets where we're able to invest. We have French unicorns that can contribute, that compete with bigger competitors, but the financial and calculating power, it's going to be so we'll never be at the same on the same level playing field. But yes, it's going to become a geopolitical issue. It's already the case, and Vladimir Putin, who not even 10 years ago says the power that will dominate AI will dominate the world, and that was 10 years ago. Sadly, clearly doesn't have AI because he's not dominating the world, and apparently the history is showing him right. Yes, there are true strategic and geopolitical challenges happening behind the AI on the issue of who is building the the calculating power. Where are the servers? What are the raw materials that allow us to do this? What are the financing resources that allow us to orient the technologies? And then we haven't mentioned it, but and that could be a topic linked to ethical issues. What ethical vision do we have when we use AI in terms of climate impact? I mean, these figures are 6 months old. I don't know if that's when you generate a picture on ChatGPT with the just simple fact of generating this picture of 6 seconds, that is the equivalent of a light bulb for 8 minutes of 8 bulbs. So imagine the ecological impact when millions of people are using, just playing around with ChatGPT or doing your impact, you have an direct ecological impact. And so here also there is a responsibility issue. But when I use a generative AI, do I really need it? Because I am burning part of the planet. Thank you. And one last question. Hello. I'm a student at Claude Monet. And my question is the following. According to you, in which area AI could be beneficial for society? Obviously, the lady has a fan club. So I think we'll all have our different points of view. You can see the half full, half empty glass. And AI, this is kind of the remedy and the poison. It can be a poison if you use it badly. If we develop self-shooting weapons, dangerous. If we all consume ChatGPT, DALL-E to generate memes and images and have a global impact on climate change. But on the other hand, on detection of weak signals, of topographical analysis, or sorting so huge realms of data, or improving agricultural method, propose and clear diagnosis on climate change. This is going to help a lot, hugely. Developing new molecules, new proteins that are absolutely fundamental for such as without AI and without quantic AI would be impossible. And what is interesting, we are going to have new drugs in 15 years that will be fantastic. That is certain. And AI will contribute to that. New diagnosis tools for doctors will be far more precise, much less error prone and much faster. Here we can see that this has a very beneficial impact. As Hubert said, what would you want to do and how are we going to use this? Because with this we can do everything. And of course, it will have an impact on society, and if we can be collectively smart enough to use it and together and use it properly. But there is a huge if here, if we are smart enough. I just wanted to add 3 little points, just to have 3 example, and I think this question is very interesting because regulation, the entire approach is a risk-based approach. We're developing AI because we think it's important, but we try to set up guardrails. We need to have another point of view. Said, okay, this is for business, but if it's also important, it's just as important for society at the scope we're saying, that we also need to engage society in a project that's not just diminish risk, but also what do we do as a society? What is the impact on the work? What kind of society do we want to build for later on? If it has an ecological impact, what are we going to do against it? I just wanted to give you 3 very concrete examples. The first one, when you are working at Meta or at Google and you moderate, I think there's about 4 billion users and you need to months and you need to moderate contents. AI is going to be used 100% on the entire platform to detect that there's no porn on Meta, no hate speech, no violence. Everything can be perfectible, of course. But here you have use cases where you have people every day working that these for models of AI to detect some contents that can be illegal, or that is one of the challenges. When you use Zoom or any other, or Skype, or before for those dinosaurs among you still use Skypes, all these video conference, it's only AI that's going to compress the data and decompress it to ensure that you can communicate with someone in China without any latency. I think that's also important when you do studies in foreign countries, and when you talk to your mom and dad, it's beneficial. And I have a soft spot for the relationship with state. I think we can do far more in order to take away a certain number of red tape tasks, and I will be able to develop this. This will be our last words. Less red tape thanks to our robot overlords. Thank you to all of you for having been here, for having been so dynamic and loud. Spend a nice, sunny, hopefully, weekend. Dehors, de dehors. Là, par la vitre.
Je fais le mec super intéressant qui est en train de...
Merci beaucoup.
Tu aurais pu la générer par IA.
Merci, allez les gars.
Bah, c'était cool, ouais.